All right, here we go. We've talked about how to connect with the students, and our next question is how do we connect with the parents? And I think if you have been a school teacher for a while, this is sort of a different approach to teaching. Um, as a school teacher, the parents were very much a secondary concern, and of course, we communicated through mail and sending back and forth assignments and at meetings. But now the parents are the client, right? So when you're a private tutor, the parents are the ones hiring you, they're the ones paying the bill. And because of that, they're the ones that a lot more of your communication is going to. So when you first start out as a tutor, this can be a little hard to feel out, how much should you be in touch with the parents and what should that look like? And I think you'll find your own style. And it can depend on a few different things. One of those is kind of getting a feel for what the parents are looking for. And I think you'll find that there are differences depending on whether you're mostly communicating with a mom or with a dad, depending on whether they prefer to chit chat and ask questions and discuss how their child is doing, or whether they want some data. They want numbers that show the improvement. And that varies from family to family. There's also a big difference in how parents feel about you as a teacher and feel about the education process. I think you'll find that some parents are pretty anxious about it. They're very concerned about their child. They want to hear good news. They might be concerned about how their child is behaving for you. And so they want to talk a lot and they'll be checking in with you about their concerns. Then there are also parents that are very trusting. They've hired you to perform a service, and just like they don't follow their accountant or their landscaper around, they're not going to double check your work. They're not going to follow you around. They trust you as a professional, expect you to do your job. None of those are necessarily good or bad parent relationships. They're just all a little bit different. And if you sort of recognize what kind of parent you are dealing with, you'll be able to do your best work as far as meeting their needs and communicating in a way that reassures them and leaves them really happy with the way you're working. There are so many different ways to communicate with parents, and you will make yourself crazy if you are equally happy to accept all of them. In terms of taking communication from parents, some parents will call you, some will email, and some will text. You may want to set some expectations in your policies about how often you check email or what your office hours are that you're taking phone calls from parents. As a tutor, there are times that you just can't pick up the phone or you can't get back to them by text. But I think it's important to have clear expectations about when you will get back to them and what that will look like. And then you need to think about how you're going to follow up on each session. I think when you're an in-person tutor, it's easy to check in with the parents when they pick up a student or when sometimes they're sitting in for the session. And some of my online parents are sitting nearby and they'll comment on something that they heard during the lesson. And some of them aren't. Some of them leave the student in a quiet room and they go back to the rest of the house where the other children are or where they're working on their own stuff. So you can decide whether you want to do lesson follow-up by phone with parents or by sending them a quick email. You can decide whether you want to have a more formal progress report form that talks about the objectives you've been working on and what the student has accomplished, or whether you want to leave it more casual and open-ended and send a 1 or 2 sentence email. You can do either one of these with or without work samples or homework. I tend to send the word list that I've written for each lesson for the student. Some of my students practice them before they meet with me again. I do request that they do that. And I think some of them don't, but I continue to do it because I think it gives the parents the opportunity to see what we're working on during the session and gives the student the opportunity to show off what they've learned. Another way to give parents access to lesson information is to sign them up for your Google Classroom. If you choose to put things in Google Classroom, you can communicate that way. Whatever way you pick is fine. You just have to be consistent and stick with it. So if parents are expecting a once a week email, make sure that you're leaving time in your schedule, that you're making time to communicate with them and send that email. Another consideration is more formal progress reporting. I have had a few parents ask for a written progress report. I have a quick form that I have put together from some modified things other tutors have given me. Some parents need them for the school. They want to share them with the school-based team when they talk about maybe formulating goals or placing the student for the coming year. I have another student who is homeschooled, and they include my report as part of their progress reporting or part of their record keeping for homeschooling. You may do these on a fixed schedule. You may say that you report at the end of the quarter or that you report at the end of the month. Or you could say, when I have new data, when I do a new round of assessments, I will send a new report. For me, that tends to be just about as many times per year. But because I'm a private tutor and I'm not a school teacher, I don't necessarily like to be tied to that calendar schedule, because if a student is out sick for the month of November, then I don't want to have a December 1st progress report. So I try to be as flexible as I can with those dates and do the assessment and the reporting when it's the best fit for me and for the student. I have a template for my progress report that I'll share with you, and you may find it helpful. Longer written reports, I do sort of upon request. I will give a short 1 to 2 page report when I do the Gallistel-Ellis. Most of that is the data tables with the scores. But I generally don't give a long written report unless it's been requested. I tend to give a very short report and then say I'm happy to discuss this by phone if you prefer. So that's my parent communication style, and I think that you'll find your own. Do you find it different communicating with parents online than in person? And why is that? Think about what the barriers are for you and how you can make that as smooth and productive as possible for your students.